When thinking about stories from Wall Street, the most inspiring ones often involve unknown everyday people who throughout their experiences, skills, or sometimes sheer luck, manage to accumulate life-changing wealth. These are tales of perseverance, risk-taking, and occasionally fortune smiling on the bold, and they never fail to captivate our imagination. On this channel we've covered a few of these remarkable stories, each one shedding light on how ordinary individuals achieve extraordinary success in the complex world of trading and finance. However, as much as those stories of triumph fascinates us, the tales that truly grip the trading floor often centers on scandals. Events so dramatic and impactful that they ripple through markets, shaking confidence and altering the financial landscape. Scandals expose the human flaws at the heart of an industry that prides itself on logic and precision. They reveal the greed, ambition, and malice that can drive people to bend or break the rules, sometimes with catastrophic consequences. And today we'll be diving into one such scandal, a story that revolves around one of the most important yet underappreciated metals in the world. That metal being copper. At first glance, copper might not seem like a headline-grabbing material. It lacks the glamour of gold and the allure of silver, and it isn't as rare or as expensive as its precious metal counterparts. But copper is indispensable. It holds a unique place in our world because it is one of the best conductors of heat and electricity. This single property has made copper a cornerstone of modern technology, finding its way into electrical wiring, electronics, and the chips that power everything from smartphones to supercomputers. Without copper, our modern infrastructure would grind to a halt. It is the quiet workhorse of the industrialized world, unassuming yet irreplaceable. Because of its importance, copper is one of the most heavily traded commodities on the planet. Its price is closely watched by governments, corporations, and traders alike, as it often serves as a barometer for global economic health. When demand for copper rises, it signals industrial growth and economic expansion. Conversely, a drop in copper prices can foreshadow a slowdown. In this volatile and highly lucrative market, fortunes can be made or destroyed in an instant. And it is here in the high-stakes world of copper trading that we find one man who not only managed to corner a significant portion of the market, but also single-handedly brought it crashing down. His name is Yasuo Hamanaka, though he's better known by a title that would cement an infamous legacy: Mr. Copper. Not much is known about Yasuo Hamanaka's early life, where he was born, where he studied, or what shaped the man who would one day dominate the global copper market. Despite digging into his story, I couldn't uncover much about his beginnings. The earliest piece of information I could find was that at the young age of 18, Hamanaka joined a Japanese company called the Sumitomo Corporation in 1968. The Sumitomo Corporation is one of Japan's largest and most prestigious companies. It is a cornerstone of the Sumitomo Group, whose roots stretches all the way back to the 17th century. What began as a family-run copper refining business grew into a sprawling multinational conglomerate that became synonymous with Japan's economic might. Among its diverse interests, the Sumitomo Corporation trades heavily in copper, a commodity that remains a core part of its business to this day. Hamanaka's rise within the company was rapid. In 1981, after more than a decade of proving his worth, he was transferred to Sumitomo's non-ferrous metals department. This division oversaw the company's copper trading operations, a high-pressure environment where decisions could mean millions gained or lost in seconds. It was here that Hamanaka began honing his skills, immersing himself in the volatile world of copper markets. His knack for understanding the nuances of copper trading quickly set him apart. By 1986, just 5 years after moving to the department, Hamanaka had established himself as a prodigy. His deep knowledge of the market combined with his relentless ambition earned him the title of Sumitomo's head copper trader, a role that came with tremendous responsibility and influence. That same year, he gained the infamous nickname Mr. Copper, a title that symbolized his dominance in the market. At the time, he was on top of the world, and it seemed nothing could stop him. But behind the curtains of success lay the dangerous truth. While Hamanaka had indeed displayed skills in trading, his amazing rise was not without its missteps. A year earlier in 1985, Hamanaka and his superior, Saburo Shimizu, had executed a copper trade that went disastrously wrong. The trade resulted in significant losses for Sumitomo, but rather than accepting the loss and reporting it, the two men made a fateful decision. They attempted to recover the money through unauthorized speculative trading on copper forward contracts on the London Metal Exchange, the world's largest future exchange for metals. Their gamble did not pay off. Instead, the scheme compounded their problems, ballooning the total losses to a staggering $60 million. The failure was so humiliating for Shimizu that he abruptly resigned, leaving Hamanaka to deal with the fallout. At this point, most responsible traders would have cut their losses, reported the incident, and faced the consequences. But this is not a story about responsibility or caution. You don't earn the nickname Mr. Copper by admitting to unauthorized trades that results in enormous losses. No, Hamanaka doubled down. Determined to maintain his reputation and avoid exposure, Hamanaka embarked on a bold and unethical strategy. He hid the losses by keeping the unauthorized trades secret and destroying any documents that detailed the financial hole they had dug for themselves. This daring cover-up worked, at least in the short term. His superiors saw only the image of a brilliant trader, and remarkably, as mentioned before, in 1986, the year after the initial losses, Hamanaka was promoted to head copper trader at Sumitomo, and thus began the reign of Mr. Copper. It was a triumph born of deception, and it marked the beginning of a career defined not only by bold trading, but also by the lies and manipulation required to sustain it. Hamanaka had gambled with his company's trust and come out on top, at least for now. But as we'll see, the path he chose would ultimately lead to one of the most infamous trading scandals in history. While Hamanaka continued his trading activities, he would soon meet the person who would take his deceptive schemes to unprecedented levels. That man was David Campbell, a businessman with connections and resources that perfectly complemented Hamanaka's ambition. The two met in 1989 through their professional dealings, and together they devised a plan that would rock the global copper market to its core. Their scheme was simple: drive up the price of copper by controlling both the physical supply and the paper markets. Campbell's company, Global Minerals and Mining Corp., supplied copper through a Zambian producer. Meanwhile, Hamanaka used Sumitomo's vast resources to buy up large amounts of copper future contracts on the London Metal Exchange. A futures contract is essentially an agreement to buy or sell copper at a set price on a future date. If prices rise, the contract becomes more valuable because the buyer can purchase copper for less than its current market price or sell the contract at a profit. By purchasing huge volumes of these contracts, Hamanaka created the illusion of soaring demand, driving up copper prices and boosting the value of the contracts he held. At the same time, Campbell's company hoarded physical copper in its warehouses, further reducing supply. This dual strategy of both manipulating the supply and futures markets allowed the two to exert enormous influence over global copper prices. At their peak, they ended up controlling 5% of the world's copper market. Now, 5% may not sound like much, but copper is a difficult commodity to move quickly in large amounts. This lack of liquidity means that even small disruptions in supply can significantly impact prices. Hamanaka's control over this slice of the market gave him enough leverage to influence prices on a global scale. It even earned him a second nickname, Mr. 5%. The scheme worked so well that Hamanaka pushed it even further. He went on to open bank accounts at major banks like Merrill Lynch, using them to secure more funding. By November 1995, Hamanaka had amassed 2 million tons of copper in futures contracts, representing half of all available contracts on the London Metal Exchange. And by the end of that year, he controlled a staggering 93% of all copper futures contracts on the exchange. This dominance triggered a classic short squeeze. Traders who had bet on copper prices falling were now forced to buy contracts at skyrocketing prices to cover the losses. Hamanaka was in complete control, able to dictate prices to desperate buyers. This was the height of his power. He was on top of the world. It seemed as though nothing could stop him. But as history has shown time and time again, no king rules forever. You could call it a coincidence or perhaps just extraordinary bad luck, but in 1995 the copper market experienced a dramatic correction at the worst possible time for Yasuo Hamanaka. Towards the end of the year, a massive surplus of copper flooded the market from China, sending prices tumbling. For Hamanaka, this spelled disaster. Sumitomo still held significant copper future contracts at this time, and the falling prices meant that the value of those contracts were falling. And falling fast. Things went from bad to worse when Hamanaka became the target of an external investigation. Both the London Metal Exchange and the US Commodity Futures Trading Commission began scrutinizing his trading activities. As investigators closed in, the elaborate house of cards that Hamanaka spent years building finally came crashing down. Sumitomo acted quickly. In an attempt to limit the damage, Hamanaka was removed from his position and stripped of his trading responsibilities. However, this move had unintended consequences. News of Hamanaka's removal sent shockwaves through the market, and traders began piling on bets against copper. They wanted blood, and with confidence in the market shaken, prices dropped even further. By the time the dust settled, Sumitomo was left facing catastrophic losses. Estimates of the damage ranged from $1.8 to $5 billion, making it one of the most infamous trading scandals in history. For Hamanaka, the fallout was also tremendous. He was publicly branded as a rogue trader and hit with a slew of allegations including forgery and fraud. The once mighty Mr. Copper, who had seemed untouchable at the height of his career, had lost everything. In the blink of an eye, years of power, prestige, and success were gone. It's astonishing how something built over decades can collapse so quickly, leaving only behind the ruins of what once was. In 1997, Yasuo Hamanaka was tried in court and found guilty of 4 counts of forgery and fraud. Surprisingly, he was not convicted of market manipulation despite the massive scale of his operation. His sentence? 8 years in prison. But what about the others involved? David Campbell and the Zambian producer who helped him with the copper scheme seem to have disappeared at this time, and it's actually unclear whether they faced any consequences for their roles in the scheme. As for Sumitomo and the banks that lent Hamanaka money, they began taking legal action against each other, resulting in settlements ranging from $100 to $200 million. While significant, these amounts pale in comparison to the overall damage done. Beyond the minimum loss of at least $1.8 billion that Sumitomo suffered from their copper trades, the damage to their reputation was also a big blow. But what about now? Where is Hamanaka today, you may ask? Well, after serving his sentence, he was released from prison a year early in 2005. Since then, he has lived a quiet life in Tokyo, and there's actually little information about his life, and it seems like he's deliberately keeping a low profile. This is of course understandable considering the deep shame and pride involved in Japanese culture. Concepts like these will weigh heavily on someone who caused such a scandal. It's hard to imagine how one might even redeem themselves after a fall of that magnitude. One of the most interesting aspects of this scandal is Hamanaka's motivation, at least to me. You might think that it was personal gain in the form of money that would be the driving force behind his actions, but Hamanaka himself claimed otherwise. At his trial, when asked why he did what he did, he stated, and I quote, "My motivation for doing the things I did was never due to personal gain, but to cover for that initial loss of 60 million, end quote. His superior Shimizu even backed him up in court on this, confirming that the loss was the initial catalyst for Hamanaka's later decisions. This statement is a fascinating insight into Hamanaka's mindset. Imagine if he had just simply accepted that first loss and moved on. It's a lesson that many traders still struggle with today. The ability to cut your losses early and move forward rather than digging yourself deeper into a losing position. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments and I may make more videos like this in the future. I'll see you in the next video.